My name is Mia, and I'm 31. The night my family laughed at my grandmother's life is burned into my memory like a scar. It was my cousin Elena's engagement dinner, one of those polished, expensive evenings where everyone pretends they've always had money. Crystal glasses clinked. Soft piano music floated through the room. And every conversation felt like a competition disguised as small talk. I sat there watching my aunts compare jewelry, my uncles debate investments, and my cousins scroll through photos of luxury vacations like proof of worth. I didn't talk much. I never did at events like this. In my family, speaking up was an invitation to be corrected, mocked, or dismissed. At some point, someone asked where I'd been lately, and without thinking, I said the first real thing that came to mind. "I've been busy with my grandma's stuff," I said. She was an army nurse. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was trying to bring something real into a room full of fake. There was a pause just long enough for me to feel the temperature change. Then my aunt gave a small, dismissive smile. "Army nurse? Really?" she said. "No medals? No stories? No records?" Another voice joined in, laughing lightly. Sounds like one of those things people make up to feel better. My chest tightened, but I didn't say anything. My cousin leaned back in his chair, swirling his drink. "So she served, and still ended up poor," he said. "That's kind of sad, isn't it?" And then someone said the line that stayed with me. "Army nurse, no medals, no records, lived poor, died poor." They repeated it like a punchline. Laughter followed, not loud, not cartoonishly cruel, but enough. Enough to make it clear what they thought of her. Enough to make it clear what they thought of me for loving her. I stared down at my plate, fingers clenched under the table, and I felt that familiar childhood sensation. The moment you realize you're alone in a room full of your own blood, because they didn't know her. They didn't know the woman who raised me when my parents were too busy chasing their own lives and collecting their own applause. They didn't know her tiny apartment that was always spotless. Even when the furniture was old and the paint had chipped, they didn't know the way she hummed while cooking like the world outside couldn't touch her. They didn't know the small box of photographs she kept tucked away. Pictures she never explained. She'd just smile at them like they were sacred and private. My grandmother Rose never complained. Not about money. Not about being forgotten. Not about the way my family only visited when they wanted something. She didn't beg for recognition because she didn't need it. She had dignity like a spine. I remembered the day she died. There was no crowd, no big ceremony, no long line of mourners. My family said they were busy, said it was too far, said it's not like she'll know. They always had an excuse that sounded reasonable if you didn't listen too closely. At Arlington, it was just me. The wind was sharp that morning, cutting through my coat as I stood there alone. I remember feeling angry that this woman who gave everything had to be lowered into the ground with no one there to honor it. Then something happened that didn't belong in the quiet story my family had written for her. A man approached me. His presence was quiet but commanding. He wore his uniform like it carried history. I blinked, because my brain couldn't immediately categorize what I was seeing. A 4-star general stopped in front of me. He didn't ask who I was like people usually do when they're curious. He looked at me like he already knew. Then he did something that made my throat tighten. He shook my hand. Not the polite, distant shake you give a stranger. A firm, respectful shake, like he was greeting someone he valued. "Fly to Geneva," he said. I stared at him, confused. "What?" He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice just enough to feel personal. "Give them your grandmother's name," he said. "They'll understand." Then he stepped back, nodded once, and walked away like he hadn't just detonated my reality. I stood there frozen, heart racing, staring at Rose's marker. Geneva. What was in Geneva? Why her name? Why now? The questions slammed into me one after another. And for the first time I realized something that made the grief feel different. Maybe my grandmother's silence wasn't emptiness. Maybe it was a lock. That night, sitting alone in my apartment, I replayed the engagement dinner and the laughter and the line they kept repeating. No medals. No records. I replayed the general's voice like it was a key turning slowly inside my head. Fly to Geneva. Give them her name. They'll understand. By morning, I'd made the decision. I booked a flight without telling anyone. Not my family. Not my friends. No one. If there was even a chance Rose's life was bigger than what they believed, I needed to know. And I needed to know before my family found a way to claim her story the way they'd tried to erase it. Geneva felt different the moment I landed. Quiet. Precise. Like a place where secrets could exist in plain sight because nobody asked questions unless they had permission. I followed the only clue I had. Her name. After hours of digging, I found the address. The general's words seemed to point toward a private institution. Nothing flashy. Just a clean, modern building with security that felt deliberate. Not aggressive. Controlled. Like they knew exactly who belonged. I walked up to the front desk and tried to keep my hands from shaking. "Hi," I said. "I was told to come here. I need to give you a name." The receptionist smiled politely. Bored. Like she heard strange requests all day. "A name?" I hesitated for 1 second, then I said it. "My grandmother, Rose." The change was instant. Her expression didn't just shift. It froze. Not confusion. Not curiosity. Recognition. She picked up the phone without another word and spoke quietly in a language I didn't understand. Within seconds, 2 men appeared from a hallway behind her. "Please come with us," one said. No explanation. No questions. Just certainty. My heart hammered as I followed them, through secured doors one after another, each locking behind me with a soft click that sounded like finality. The deeper we went, the more unreal it felt. Like I'd stepped into a part of Rose's life she had hidden so completely that even I wasn't supposed to find it. They led me into a private office. An older man stood by the window with his back turned. When he heard the door close, he turned around slowly, and the moment he saw me, his face softened. "You have her eyes?" he said quietly. I couldn't speak. My throat felt tight, like my body was bracing for a truth it didn't know how to carry. He gestured for me to sit. I stayed standing. "I don't understand what's happening," I admitted. "I was told to come here. I was told you'd understand her name." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Yes," he said, "we do." He opened a secure drawer, pulled out a thick file aged, handled, heavy with history, and placed it on the desk like it weighed more than paper. "Your grandmother was not just an army nurse," he said. My breath caught. She was one of the most important field operatives we ever had. The room felt smaller. The air felt thinner. I shook my head slightly, trying to force reality to stay familiar. "But there's nothing," I whispered. "No medals. No records." "That was intentional," he said gently. "Her work could never be public. Recognition would have put lives at risk even years later." In that moment, everything my family mocked turned inside out. Every nothing they laughed at became the exact reason she mattered. He explained it in pieces, like he knew dumping the whole truth at once could break a person. Rose worked in places where records weren't meant to exist. War zones that were politically invisible. Situations where saving lives required more than medicine, where her hands healed while her mind gathered information that protected others. She chose to live quietly after she retired. He said, "We offered her wealth, protection, a different life." "And she refused?" I asked, voice small. He smiled faintly. "She said she'd already done enough." My eyes burned, because that was Rose. She never wanted applause. She wanted peace. He slid the file toward me. Inside were sealed documents, photographs, and records I wasn't allowed to keep but allowed to see. Then he turned to a final page and placed his finger on a single number. A trust. 12 yuan. Liniling. Liniling. I read it twice, then a third time, because my brain refused to accept it. My hands went cold. "This can't be real." "It's real," he said. "She left it in our care with strict instructions. It was never about money for her. But she wanted you to have a choice, a future without limits. Tears finally slipped free, not because of the money, because of what it meant. All those years of silence weren't emptiness. They were sacrifice. If your family mocked someone you loved like this, would you stay quiet at the table? Or finally speak up? Comment, quiet, or speak up. A few days later, I sat across from my family again, same kind of polished table, same curated smiles, same people who laughed like Rose's life was a joke. But this time I wasn't quiet. They noticed immediately. One aunt asked, half joking, half curious, "What's with you? You look different." I looked around slowly, meeting each pair of eyes one by one. "My grandma was an army nurse," I said. A few of them smirked, ready for the punchline they'd used last time. I didn't stop. "No medals," I continued. "No public records. She lived quietly." The smirk softened. The room leaned in without admitting it. "At Arlington," I said. "It was just me." Then a 4-star general walked up. He shook my hand. No one moved. "He told me to fly to Geneva," I said. "He told me to give them her name." The room went still in a way that felt like the air got heavier. "They understood," I said. I let it sit. Then I added, calmly, "And so will you." I didn't have to announce the number. I didn't have to wave documents. The truth was enough. The truth always is when it's finally spoken. Because the real revenge wasn't money. It was watching their faces change when they realized the woman they called nothing had been everything. And the lesson hit me so hard it almost felt physical. Value isn't always visible. The people you underestimate the most sometimes carry the biggest stories. And if someone laughs at quiet sacrifice, it's not because it was small. It's because they're too shallow to recognize depth. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and turn on notifications. More real story times are coming.